Are you truly sick of feeling lost in English conversations? I know that feeling very well, because I was there too. It often felt like being adrift in a vast ocean of unfamiliar words. You hear people talking, laughing, and sharing. You want to connect with them, to be part of their world. But something holds you back, a barrier made of hesitation and doubt. It's a difficult place to be, this island of silence, especially when you have so much you wish to say. Many people experience this exact same challenge when learning a new language. The path to learning English can seem very complicated at first. You might struggle with grammar rules that feel confusing and endless. New vocabulary words appear every day, and remembering them all is hard. Pronunciation can also be a big hurdle, making you shy to speak. Perhaps you worry that others will not understand you, or worse, you fear they might laugh at your mistakes. These are common worries for language learners everywhere. This concern can often lead to a reluctance to even try, creating a cycle of silence and missed opportunities for practice and genuine connection with others. This feeling of being overwhelmed is perfectly normal. It is not a sign of failure. It is simply a part of the learning process itself. Imagine wanting to ask a simple question, but the words get stuck, or trying to follow a fast-paced discussion, only to catch a few words here and there. Learning English can feel like climbing a very tall mountain. It looks daunting from the bottom, almost impossible to reach the peak. You see others who speak fluently, and you wonder if you will ever get there. I truly understand these doubts because I have faced them myself. I remember the frustration very clearly. I remember the desire to communicate freely without constant searching for words. But I am here to tell you that reaching fluency is possible. It is not a distant dream reserved for a lucky few. It's an achievable goal for anyone willing to embark on the journey with persistence. This video, this narrative, is my personal journey laid bare. It details my own transformation from a beginner, often lost for words, to someone who can now navigate English conversations with ease and confidence. I want to show you the steps I took, the challenges I faced, and how I overcame them. There were no magic tricks involved, no instant solutions that made me fluent overnight. It was a process, a series of small victories, consistent effort, and the discovery of methods that truly resonated with me. My path was unique to me, yet it holds lessons that can help you forge your own. The strategies that worked for me are not secrets. They are practical, actionable steps that you can start implementing today. I will share the resources I found most helpful. I will talk about the study habits that made a real difference. We will explore how I learned to stop fearing mistakes and start seeing them as learning opportunities. My goal is to provide you with a roadmap, a guide drawn from real experience. When I first decided to learn English seriously, it felt like standing before a giant wall. This wall was built of unfamiliar words, strange sounds, and grammar rules that twisted my brain. Every new word I learned seemed to reveal 10 more I did not know. It was a daunting sight, I must admit. I would open a book or listen to a conversation, and so much of it would just wash over me. I wondered how anyone could ever learn it all. It felt like an endless ocean of information, and I was just trying to learn how to float. Understanding native English speakers was particularly challenging in those early days. They often spoke so quickly, their words blending together into a stream of sound. Accents were another hurdle. A new accent could make familiar words sound completely foreign again. And then there were idioms and slang expressions. These phrases made no sense when translated literally. I would hear them and feel completely lost, as if a secret code was being spoken. It was like trying to catch fast-moving fish with my bare hands, a constant struggle to grasp the meaning. My own first attempts to speak English were filled with hesitation. I worried a lot about my pronunciation. Would people understand what I was trying to say? Or would my accent be too strong, too confusing? I often knew the words in my head, but getting them out in the right order and with the right sounds was a huge effort. Each sentence felt like a performance, and I was terrified of forgetting my lines or saying something wrong. This fear often made me choose silence over speaking, even when I desperately wanted to join in. This difficulty in communicating created a sense of isolation. During those early stages, a little voice of doubt often whispered in my ear. It would ask questions like, "Are you sure you can do this?" Or, "Maybe English is just too difficult for you." This inner critic was relentless sometimes, especially when progress felt slow. I would compare myself to others who seemed to learn faster. I wondered if I was missing some special talent for languages. This self-doubt was a heavy weight to carry. It made the already challenging task of learning even harder, creating an internal battle alongside the external one of mastering the language. Frustration was a frequent companion on my journey. I would spend hours studying, practicing vocabulary, and trying to understand grammar. Yet, sometimes it felt like I was not moving forward at all. I would make the same mistakes over and over again. There were days when I felt like I was stuck in quicksand. The more I struggled, the deeper I seemed to sink. This lack of visible progress was disheartening. It tested my motivation and my resolve to continue. It is easy to feel enthusiastic at the start, but maintaining that through slow periods is the real test. The embarrassment of making mistakes in public was another significant emotional hurdle. I remember my face turning red when I used the wrong word or mispronounced something important. It made me feel foolish, even though I knew mistakes were a part of learning. I wanted to speak perfectly, to sound like a native speaker right away. This desire for perfection was unrealistic, of course. Navigating the maze early communication challenges. I recall many specific moments of misunderstanding from my early days. Sometimes they were funny in hindsight, but frustrating at the time. I once confidently ordered what I thought was a spicy dish, only to receive something incredibly sweet. My misinterpretation of a single word led to a surprising meal. Another time, I completely misunderstood directions and ended up wonderfully lost. These experiences, while teaching me valuable lessons, also highlighted the practical difficulties of navigating daily life with limited English. It was a constant process of trial and error, often feeling like I was in a linguistic fog. The mental effort required to communicate was exhausting. In every conversation, I was constantly translating in my head. I would form a sentence in my native language, then try to find the English equivalents for each word. Then I would attempt to put them in the correct grammatical order. All of this had to happen quickly, while also trying to listen to what the other person was saying. It was like juggling multiple balls at once. After a long conversation, or even a short one that required a lot of effort, my brain would feel completely drained, as if I had run a mental marathon. There was also a persistent fear of being misunderstood in a more serious way. I worried that I might accidentally say something offensive or inappropriate. Cultural nuances are often embedded in language, and I was afraid of making a social blunder without even realizing it. This fear sometimes made me overly formal or hesitant to express strong opinions. I wanted to be respectful and polite, but my limited vocabulary and understanding sometimes made me anxious about how my words would be received. The power of comprehensible input, my first big breakthrough. For a long time, my English learning felt stuck. I studied grammar rules very hard. I memorized long lists of vocabulary words. Yet, understanding natural conversations was still a struggle. Speaking felt even harder, like trying to assemble a puzzle with missing pieces. I felt frustrated because my efforts didn't seem to lead to real fluency. Traditional methods taught me about English, but they didn't make me feel comfortable using it. I knew there had to be a different way, a path that felt less like a chore and more like natural learning. I began to search for a new approach, something that would finally click. Then I discovered the idea of comprehensible input. This was a true aha moment for me. The concept was simple. Focus on understanding messages in English. Don't worry too much about consciously learning every grammar rule. The key was to listen to and read English that I could mostly understand. It was like learning my first language all over again, by just being exposed to it. I learned that our brains are designed to acquire language this way, naturally. This new idea shifted my entire perspective. Learning English could be enjoyable, not just endless drills and exercises. I started to actively seek out materials that were at my level, or just a little bit above. Activating my voice. The magic of speaking practice. While my understanding of English grew fast, my speaking skills lagged behind. I needed to actually speak to become confident. Stepping out of my comfort zone was essential. I started small, thinking in English during the day. Narrating my daily activities helped. I found a language exchange partner online. Our first conversations were awkward but valuable. Slowly, my speaking started to flow more easily. Speaking practice became an exciting challenge. It connected knowing English with using it to connect with people. Section 3. Unlocking a world of words resources that transformed my learning. I realized that relying on just one method was not enough. I needed a variety of tools for different aspects of English. My journey became a quest to find effective and interesting resources. Enjoying the material made study time feel like a hobby. I explored many different types of resources. Apps like Duolingo were helpful for building basic vocabulary. YouTube became a fantastic resource for ESL learners. Podcasts were great for listening practice on the go. News websites with simpler English helped me understand current events. Authentic materials like TV shows and books made English feel alive. Resources are like tools in a toolbox. You need to learn how to use each tool correctly to build language fluency. Section 4. Living in English, creating my own immersion bubble. I soon understood a very important truth. I did not need to move to an English-speaking country to immerse myself in the language. I realized I could create my own English environment right where I was. My goal was to make English a natural part of my daily life. I wanted constant, natural exposure. So I made a conscious decision to change my surroundings and habits. I started with small, practical steps. I changed the language settings on my smartphone and computer to English. I listened to English music or podcasts while doing chores. I put sticky notes with English names on objects around my house. My entertainment choices shifted to English movies, shows, and books. Every little change helped to build my immersion bubble. The effects were subtle at first, but powerful over time. English words and phrases started to pop into my head naturally. I began to notice that I was sometimes thinking in English. Understanding nuances in conversations became easier. The rhythm and flow of spoken English started to feel more familiar. My brain was slowly rewiring itself to accommodate this new language. This self-created immersion truly became a game changer for my fluency. It made English feel less like a subject I was studying and more like a language I was living. All the active learning I was doing was constantly reinforced by this passive exposure. It helped to solidify what I learned and made it easier to recall words and phrases. This holistic approach was key to making English a comfortable and natural part of my everyday life. It made English feel less like a subject I was studying and more like a language I was living. All the active learning I was doing, like studying vocabulary or practicing speaking, was constantly reinforced by this passive exposure. It helped to solidify what I learned and made it easier to recall words and phrases when I needed them. This holistic approach, combining active study with a rich English environment, was key to making English a comfortable and natural part of my everyday life. Section 1. Charting your course. Realistic goals and lasting motivation. Setting. Small, achievable goals is key. Aim to learn 5 new words each day, or understand 1 short English news article. These steps give a sense of progress. Break down your big dream into smaller pieces. Find your deep reason for learning English. Celebrate your small victories. Acknowledge how far you have come. Your unique path. Finding learning methods that fit you. There is no single best way to learn English. What works for one might not work for another. Experiment with different methods. Find what makes learning enjoyable and productive for you. Connect learning to your passions. It becomes more engaging and sustainable. Be flexible and adapt your methods as you progress. Regularly assess what works to ensure effective learning and progress towards fluency. Navigating rough waters, overcoming plateaus and fears. Almost every language learner experiences a plateau. It feels like you're not making progress. But this is normal and part of learning. Change your routine to break through. Try new materials or activities. Set challenging goals to reignite progress. Mistakes are valuable teachers. Focus on communicating, not perfection. Develop a growth mindset. Believe in your ability to improve. Reflect on your progress and keep going. The power of routine building consistent English habits. Consistency is key in language learning. Study a little every day rather than cramming weekly. Think of it like exercise for your brain. Regular practice strengthens neural pathways. Even 30 minutes daily makes a difference. Integrate English into daily routines. Listen to podcasts or read books. Use apps to track progress and stay motivated. Daily reminders help maintain streaks. Habit trackers show your progress. Find a study buddy for support. Share resources and motivate each other. Make learning fun and enjoyable. I vividly remember the small, almost unnoticeable moments that marked my early progress. It was not like a sudden floodlight turning on. Instead, it was more like tiny sparks appearing in the darkness. One day, I understood a single word in a song on the radio without trying. Another time, I recognized a phrase I had studied being used in a movie. These were not huge breakthroughs, but they were incredibly significant to me. These tiny victories started to chip away at the feeling of being completely overwhelmed by English. They were the first whispers that told me my efforts were actually making a difference. These initial moments of understanding were like finding hidden treasures. Each one brought a little jolt of excitement and encouragement. Before this, English often felt like a solid wall of noise. But now, small pieces were becoming clear. I started to notice patterns. I began to anticipate what someone might say next in a very simple exchange. This was not about deep comprehension yet. It was about catching familiar sounds and connecting them to meaning. This dawning awareness was crucial. It showed me that the language was not entirely impenetrable. There was a way in, and I was starting to find it. Gradually, these isolated moments of clarity started to link together. I moved from understanding a single word here and there to grasping the general idea of a short sentence. Perhaps someone asked a simple question, and I realized I knew what they were asking, even if I could not yet answer fluently. Or I might read a headline in an English newspaper and get the main point. This transition was subtle but powerful. It was like my brain was slowly assembling a new puzzle. Each correctly placed piece made the bigger picture a little clearer and a little less intimidating. This growing ability to understand, even at a very basic level, began to change how I felt about English. The language started to feel less like a foreign enemy and more like a potential friend. The constant feeling of being lost in conversations began to recede, just a little. I was still a beginner, of course, with a long way to go, but these early glimmers of comprehension provided crucial fuel. They gave me the courage to keep learning, to keep listening, and to keep trying. They were the first solid steps on the path to building real confidence. Finding my voice, small steps to speaking confidence. The journey from understanding English to actually speaking it was another significant chapter. For a long time, I mostly listened and read, absorbing the language passively. The thought of forming my own sentences and speaking them aloud was quite frightening. I worried so much about making mistakes, about my accent, or about not finding the right words. But I knew that to truly learn, I had to overcome this fear. I needed to move from being a silent observer to an active participant. This required a new kind of courage, the courage to try and potentially fail. My first attempts at speaking were very small and deliberate. I might practice saying a new phrase I learned, just to myself. Then, I started with very simple interactions. Perhaps I would try ordering coffee in English, rehearsing the sentences in my head many times before. I clearly remember the first time I asked for directions and the person understood me. It was a simple exchange, lasting only a minute. But the feeling of success was immense. That small victory felt like a giant leap for my confidence. It showed me that my voice could be understood. These little successes in speaking began to build on each other. Each time I managed to communicate something, however simple, my fear lessened a tiny bit. I started to realize that people were generally patient and helpful. They were not usually waiting to criticize my mistakes. They were often just happy I was trying to communicate in their language. This realization was liberating. It helped me to relax a little more and to focus on getting my message across, rather than on achieving perfect grammar or pronunciation in every single sentence. Slowly, the gap between what I understood and what I could say began to narrow. The words I had been learning through reading and listening started to become available when I needed them for speaking. It was not always a smooth process. There were many stumbles and awkward moments. But with each attempt, with each small conversation, my spoken English became a little more natural. These tiny steps in active communication were crucial. They were building not just my speaking skills, but also the self-belief necessary to use them more boldly. The rising tide: how confidence fuels fluency. Small wins in understanding and speaking boosted my confidence. My confidence grew like a rising tide. I began to trust myself more. I trusted my ability to understand and express myself. Confidence drove my progress towards fluency. I took more risks and joined complex conversations. My English became more fluent and spontaneous. Confidence was essential in finding my voice in English. The enduring echo: the importance of persistence. My journey from silence to fluency was long and filled with struggles. It started with feelings of being lost, but each small breakthrough mattered. Persistence was key. Daily effort led to new discoveries. Learning a language is a continuous process. It requires dedication and persistence. Keep going, even when it feels difficult. Persistence bridges dreams with reality. Embrace it as your closest companion. It keeps your learning heart alive. A World Reimagined: the rewards of fluency. Mastering English opens up a world of connections and understanding. It enriches your life, making it fuller and more vibrant. You gain confidence and new perspectives. The journey is challenging but deeply rewarding. Embrace your English learning journey with all your heart. Unlock a new version of yourself. Start today and discover the satisfaction of fluency.